Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another Patreon bonus video. This time we're taking a look at Amulet Titan in Modern, a deck that could be classified as a ramp deck, but it certainly plays out a lot differently than most ramp decks. We're trying to take advantage of Amulet of Vigor, a 1-mana artifact that says, whenever a permanent enters the battlefield tapped under our control, untap it instead. And that's mostly gonna affect how lands enter the battlefield in our deck, since we're playing a lot of lands that enter the battlefield tapped. But with an Amulet of Vigor, we get to take full advantage of those lands, especially all the bounce lands from the original Ravnica block. For example, Simic Growth Chamber, a land that enters the battlefield tapped. When the Growth Chamber enters the battlefield, we have to return a land we control to its owner's hand, and then the Growth Chamber taps to add blue and green mana to our mana pool, so it taps for 2 mana instead of just 1. Then another big part of the deck is all these effects that let us put additional lands into play. We've got 4 copies of Sakura-Tribe Scout, which is a 1-mana 1/1 that we can tap to put a land from our hand onto the battlefield. We also have 4 copies of Explore, which is a 2-mana sorcery that lets us play an additional land, as well as letting us draw a card. And 4 copies of Azusa, Lost But Seeking, a 3-mana 1/2 legendary creature that lets us play 2 additional lands on each of our turns, which in combination with all these bounce lands that let us return lands to our hand, plus the fact that we're playing 28 lands in our deck to begin with, is going to make sure that we can always keep playing extra lands with those effects. And of course, Amulet of Vigor, plus the bounce lands, and these effects that let us play extra lands each turn, can kind of turn these Simic Growth Chambers into ways to generate 2 mana. So let's say we have an Amulet of Vigor in play, and an Azusa Lost But Seeking, and we haven't played a land for the turn yet, so we can still play 3 lands for the turn, and we have a Simic Growth Chamber in hand. Then we can play the Simic Growth Chamber. 2 triggers will go on the stack, one from the Amulet of Vigor untapping the Simic Growth Chamber, and the other one forcing us to return a land we control back to our hand. So we can make sure to stack those in such a way that we get to untap the Simic Growth Chamber first. Then before having to return a land to our hand, we can tap the Simic Growth Chamber for a blue and a green mana, and then we can return the Simic Growth Chamber itself back to our hand with its own ability. Then the second and third land drop, we can do exactly the same thing, adding an additional blue and green mana to our mana pool, and the end result is that we have 6 mana in our mana pool, and we've exhausted all the extra land drops for the turn. But with 6 mana, that's just enough for us to play a Primeval Titan, which is a 6-mana 6/6 with Trample, and when Primeval Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, we can search our library for up to 2 land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle our library. And Primeval Titan also works very nicely with Amulet of Vigor, since the 2 lands we search up will untap thanks to our amulet. So let's say we cast a Primeval Titan with that 6 floating mana, we get to search up 2 more lands. One of those lands could be a Boros Garrison, which is a red-white version of Simic Growth Chamber. And another land could be, for example, a Slayers Stronghold, which is a utility land where we can spend a red and a white mana, tap the Slayers Stronghold to give target creature +2/+0, Vigilance and Haste until end of turn. So Boros Garrison and Slayers Stronghold enter the battlefield tapped, but they will untap thanks to Amulet of Vigor. So we get to add a red and white mana to our mana pool with the Boros Garrison. We get to activate Slayers Stronghold targeting Primeval Titan, so we get to give it +2/+0, Vigilance and Haste until end of turn. And then we still have to return a land to our hand with the Boros Garrison trigger, but that's not really a big issue. And then we get to attack with Primeval Titan in the same turn that we've cast him. And of course, as soon as Primeval Titan attacks, we get another trigger from the Primeval Titan, letting us search up 2 more lands. Let's say this time around we search up a copy of Simic Growth Chamber alongside a Tolaria West, which is a land that enters the battlefield tapped and can add blue mana, and also has Transmute for 1 and double blue. So we can pay 1 and double blue, discard Tolaria West from our hand, and then search our library for a card with convert mana cost 0, reveal it, and put it into our hand. So with the trigger from the Simic Growth Chamber that makes us return a land to our hand, we can just pick up the Tolaria West, where we can then transmute it in the future. And the cool thing about Tolaria West in this deck is that we have a ton of targets. Not only can we search up any of our lands which have convert mana cost 0, but we also have 5 pacts. So we've got 4 copies of Summoner Pact, which is a 0 mana instant that lets us search our library for a green creature card, reveal it and put it into our hand. And at the beginning of our next upkeep, we have to pay 2 and double green, otherwise we lose the game. So what Summoner's Pact is going to do is search up more copies of Primeval Titan. We also have 1 copy of Pact of Negation, which is a counter spell for 0 mana, but at the beginning of our next upkeep we have to pay 3 and double blue, otherwise we lose the game. And other Tolaria West targets also include Engineered Explosives, which has a converted mana cost of 0, and a Walking Ballista, which are both cards that can get you out of sticky situations, or Walking Ballista can also be a nice finisher once we have a lot of lands in play. So this is just a brief overview of some of the things you can do in this deck. So let's go over some of the cards that we haven't discussed yet. We have 4 copies of Ancient Stirrings as well, which is a 1 mana sorcery that lets us take a look at the top 5 cards of our library and reveal a colorless card among those and put it into our hand. So this helps us search up our Amulet of Vigor, can also find Engineered Explosives, Walking Ballista, and of course all the lands in our deck are colorless as well, so those are also fair targets for Ancient Stirrings. Then we also have a 1-off Reclamation Sage in our deck, to solve potential problems like Blood Moons that the opponent might play, since those are definitely problematic for our deck. And we can also search it up with Summoner's Pact as a green creature, so this covers all the main deck spells in our deck, but of course we're playing 28 lands, which is almost half our deck, so we've got a lot of different utility lands that we can search up with our Primeval Titan or Tolaria West. So we've got 4 basic forests as our basic lands to play around Blood Moon, and make sure we can pay for Summoner's Pact through a Blood Moon, for example. We've got 4 copies of Gemstone Mine, which can add mana of any color, but after 3 uses it goes away. But with all the bounce lands, we can just pick up Gemstone Mine after 2 uses, so it doesn't go away. We've got a Cavern of Souls to make our creatures uncounterable against control decks. We've got a Bojuka Bog, which enters the battlefield tapped, but exiles a graveyard, so great against graveyard decks. We've got a Khalni Garden, which is a tap land that makes an 0/1 plant token when it enters the battlefield, so useful if we need more blockers. We've got a Ghost Corridor to deal with opposing lands, a Radiant Fountain to gain 2 life. We've got a Sunhome Fortress of the Legion to give our Primeval Titan double strike until end of turn. I've already mentioned the Slayers Stronghold to give +2/+0 vigilance and haste. Vesuva, which enters the battlefield as a copy of one of our lands, so that can also be very useful to copy one of our utility lands or copy one of the many bounce lands. We've got 3 copies of Tolaria West, which is a nice tutor for all the different 0 mana cards in our deck. So one of the common play patterns is to return Tolaria West to our hand with one of the bounce lands, so we can transmute it. And then we've got a total of 9 bounce lands in our deck, 4 copies of Simic Growth Chamber, since blue and green are the primary colors in our deck, since we want to be able to cast all the green spells, as well as transmute Tolaria West, which is why blue is such an important part. And then we've got the 1-off Boros Garrison to go with our Slayers Stronghold and Sunhome Fortress of the Legion, a Selesnya Sanctuary, and 3 Gruul Turfs. So that's the main deck. Now let's take a quick look at our sideboard, where we've got 3 copies of Spell Pierce to counter non-creature spells, 2 Relic of Progenitus against graveyard decks, an Abrade to answer creatures as well as artifacts, Seal of Primordium for artifacts and enchantments, a Kozilek's Return, which we can also find with our Ancient Stirrings as a colorless card to deal with creature decks. Dismember can also get rid of larger creatures. Firespout as another sweeper. 2 copies of Obstinate Baloth to gain some life and put a 4/4 into play. A Ruric Thar, which is great against control decks. And a Hornet Queen, which is also great against removal-heavy decks or decks where we need some flying blockers. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw, and unfortunately we don't have a normal land to go with the 2 bounce lands, so if you just play a bounce land as your first land, that doesn't really work out, so I don't think we can keep, but otherwise it did have pretty much everything we needed, so it feels bad to mulligan. Alright, I guess we'll keep this. It's also not exciting. Reclamation Sage can be bad in certain matchups, and we don't have any actual ramp cards, but I don't think we can go to 5. Alright, I'll keep an Explorer. And turn 1 Mountain, no play. Alright, let's play Tolaria West here, I think. And then we can go turn 2 Explorer into a Simic Growth Chamber. And Thar, Fire, or Face. Okay, so they've got some sort of graveyard synergies going, and yep, there we see Tarmogoyf. So the tribal instant counting as 2 creature types for Tarmogoyf. Alright, so we're under a bit of pressure right away, but we're just gonna explore and hope to find more ramp effects. Amulet of Vigor, that's a good one. So now we can just play Forest into Amulet. And then next turn the Growth Chamber is gonna essentially make 2 mana. So we're pretty close to casting a Primeval Titan, as we see Traverse for just a basic land. So I imagine our opponent's on Junt, instead they just get another forest. So red-green so far. Tarmogoyf gets in for 3, and nothing else. And Radiant Fountain. Alright, so we can't quite cast Primeval Titan here, but next turn we will be able to. So I don't mind playing Ballista for 2 in the meantime, even though if it dies it will put 2 more card types in the graveyard for Tarmogoyf. So I guess we could also just opt not to play the Ballista, but I think it's fine. And yep, there's a Lightning Bolt end of turn. So now the Tarmogoyf is going to be a 5/6 because of Artifact and creature entering the graveyard. But we also got rid of a Bolt, which is now not going to go to our face or finish off a Primeval Titan. Mishra's Bauble was going to put Artifact in the graveyard anyway, so I don't hate our spot here. Oof, Blood Moon. Well, we do have the Reclamation Sage in hand, luckily. So we do have our best out to a Blood Moon in hand, but definitely didn't expect Blood Moon to make an appearance, and that's going to make sideboarded games pretty rough. Let's Ancient Stirrings first, I guess. And we find Bojuka Bog. Wow, that's actually a good one here. So we get to Reclamation Sage, get rid of Blood Moon, and then Bojuka Bog, the opponent's graveyard. Shrink down the Tarmogoyf. So Tarmogoyf is still gonna be a 3-power creature here because of our graveyard, but at least we got rid of the Blood Moon, which is the important part. Hope they don't have a second one. And then next turn we can cast Primeval Titan. And there's a Bloodbraid Elf. Alright, can block that with Reclamation Sage. Soul's Fire, wow. So Tarmogoyf can deal 4 damage to us, put us to 8. So our opponent's got a very interesting deck going here. So we can block the Goyf, take 3 down to 5. Or we can trade, take 5 and then risk dying to a Lightning Bolt. Unless we want to get Vesuva to copy Radiant Fountain to gain 2 more life, to put ourselves out of range. But another Soul's Fire could also kill us. So this is an interesting spot for sure. I feel like we're fine blocking the Elf here. Take 5 down to 3. And since we do have the Amulet of Vigor, we can actually get our land to give our Primeval Titan haste right away. And then we can get a way to gain some life or get our Khalni Garden to make a chump blocker. So play a Simic Growth Chamber. Do we return the Growth Chamber itself? I guess we could return Tolaria West as well. So we'll cast Summoner's Pact, get Primeval Titan, search up Boros Garrison and Slayers Stronghold, untap those, and I guess we can also pick up our Bojuka Bog again. That might be useful. And then give our Titan haste. And we also still can play the Scout here to have an extra blocker out. Alright, so what do we get with this trigger? I feel we just wanna be conservative here. So we'll get Vesuva to gain 2 more life, and the Khalni Garden to make an extra blocker. And so we'll copy the Radiant Fountain. And hit them for 8. Huh, I guess we still die to a Soul's Fire this way, but I don't expect our opponent to have a lot of those. So we'll see here if we get punished for blocking the Bloodbraid last turn instead of the Tarmogoyf. We also could have gotten an extra blue land, so we can make sure to transmute Tolaria West in case they kill the Primeval Titan somehow. Opponent gets a forest with Traverse. Is this another Bloodbraid Elf? Nope, Blood Moon. Well, luckily we have our 2 forests, so we can pay for the Summoner's Pact on our upkeep. So could have been worse. And find Azusa. So I think we're just attacking with our Primeval Titan here. So what lands can we possibly get here? So is there any reason to get anything but basic forests? Don't think so. Well, Tarmogoyf being a 5/6 instead of a 6/7 is definitely relevant here. So our opponent takes it, and we'll play Azusa. And say go. Well, if our opponent doesn't find another creature to put into play here, they're in trouble. Firespout. Yeah, that's gonna do it. Opponent going real deep here. Playing Firespout and Soulsfire. But they're gonna get the job done here, clearing all our chum blockers and getting in with a lethal Tarmogoyf. Well, we almost managed to win through double Blood Moon, which is impressive. So let's see what we can do after sideboard. Definitely want our Seal of Primordium. A Relic of Progenitus looks good. Could also make a case for Obstinate Baloth just to gain some life back. And Dismember is probably okay as well to kill Tarmogoyf. And I think that's it. So a lot of cards coming in. What do we want to cut? So I'm assuming our opponent has a million Ancient Grudges in their sideboard. So we might just want to cut all the amulets. Also not great if they have a Blood Moon out. And then I don't expect to need Pact of Negation. Also difficult to pay for through Blood Moon. Walking Ballista might be a liability if it ends up in the graveyard. And then I'll cut a Cavern of Souls since our opponent's not playing any counter spells. And it's always fine to cut one land. So I think this is okay. Maybe should have also considered Hornet Queen since it matches up pretty well against Tarmogoyf. But if they keep in cards like Firespout, then it's pretty weak. Would like to be on the play. And can we keep this? So we've got Seal for Blood Moon. And we've got Scout to potentially help us ramp. Don't have the blue mana for Tolaria West yet. But we do have one Gemstone Mine. So this one's close. It's not an exciting hand, but I think it's probably still keepable. Bojuka Bog also does something against Traverse and Tarmogoyf. Let's see if they have the turn 1 removal spell. They do. Lightning Bolt. Alright, there's a payoff card, so now we just need to slowly ramp our way up towards 6 mana. I don't hate getting Seal of Primordium in play while we can. And then next turn we can pick up the Gemstone with the Gruul Turf. Could have also considered cutting some number of Azusas, since they're pretty vulnerable to those Lightning Bolts and Thar Fires. Could also Bojuka Bog the opponent's graveyard, but we might be better off waiting a turn or two before pulling the trigger. So we might just Sanctuary, returning Gemstone Mine for this turn. Could even consider getting Azusa with Summoner's Pact, but not this turn. So we'll just play Sanctuary, returning Gemstone Mine, and say go. Mishra's Bauble is gonna grow the Tarmogoyf, so now we can probably play the Bojuka Bog next turn, to good effect. And Alpine Moon, don't know if that one's particularly great against us. Like, we do have 4 copies of Simic Growth Chamber, and that's actually the one they name, but we don't have one in hand currently, so it's actually not doing anything. Tarmogoyf gets in for 4. We'll untap. And Explore is also a nice one. Let's explore. So now we can play Bojuka Bog, target the opponents, and we could even pick up our Bojuka Bog again with Gruul Turf. And then next turn we can play Gemstone Mine into Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan. And we've got Seal of Primordium as insurance against Blood Moon. Is this a Bloodbraid Elf? Nope. Faithless Looting. So they're gonna try and grow the Tarmogoyf here, putting Firespout and Misty Rainforest in the graveyard. So they did keep in the Firespouts. So I'm happy we didn't bring in the Hornet Queen. And what is this? A Groundbreaker? Okay. So that's gonna put us all the way to 7. So this explains the Soulsfire we saw in the first game. That plus Groundbreaker can do a lot of damage. Although it does require 6 mana to play both. But I think we're just playing Primeval Titan here. So let's Pact for a Titan. So we can get Khalni Garden plus Radiant Fountain. That's reasonable. We already can make red and white mana for the Sunhome. And we already have Tolaria West, although I guess we don't have any blue mana in play yet, so we could consider getting a blue land for the Tolaria West we have in hand. So maybe we just get Tolaria West plus Khalni Garden. This way we don't have to block with our Primeval Titan, so the Titan doesn't die to a bolt effect. So the plant token is more valuable than gaining 2 life in this instance. And we'll say go. So next turn we could pay for the Pact and transmute Tolaria West after playing Gemstone Mine. Or we can play Bojuka Bog to shrink Tarmogoyf, we'll see. Seal of Primordium, alright. If our opponent has land plus Blood Moon and blows up our seal, I guess we're dead. I should have sacrificed it to blow up the Alpine Moon here, but probably doesn't matter too much. Alright, opponent passes, so they probably have a Blood Moon in hand, but just didn't have the extra land to play it. If we had just gotten an extra forest, we could have paid the Pact through Blood Moon. Definitely wasn't expecting our opponent to have a Seal of Primordium. I was more expecting him to have Ancient Grudges. So let's pay for the Pact, and our opponent has seen enough, so we could have activated Sunhome to give our Primeval Titan double strike, which would have been pretty good. Alright, so do we want to change anything after seeing some of those cards? I don't think we do. I think just getting 2 Primeval Titan should be enough, and we have the Obstinate Baloths as well to gain some life. And I think I like the fact that we took out Amulet. Just have to be careful for the opponent's Seal of Primordium destroying our own seal. So we might have to get double forest with Primeval Titan, but that's okay. So let's just run it back. I guess Walking Ballista against those 6/1 Trample Haste creatures can be pretty good, but Walking Ballista still dies to pretty much anything and puts creature and artifact in the graveyard, so that's a little sketchy in the face of Tarmogoyf. And how about this hand? Looks reasonable. If the Tribe Scout survives, we can ramp into maybe a turn 4 Primeval Titan. And we've got Relic for Tarmogoyf, Ancient Stirrings to help us find more stuff. I think we still run out the Tribe Scout in the hopes that it survives. Alright, no removal spell, that's a first. So we get to activate our Tribe Scout if we want to. So I think we're using the Gemstone Mine so we can cast Ancient Stirrings. And then we can still play the Relic afterwards as well. Alright, opponent's fetching. And we find Engineered Explosives, so that's a potential answer to Blood Moon if we can play it before the Blood Moon enters the battlefield. And also potential answer to Tarmogoyf. So I think I'll play the Sanctuary, returning Gemstone. And then we can put Gemstone into play Relic. And say go. I guess we could have made the argument for only playing Relic if we have mana up to sacrifice and draw a card in case of Ancient Grudge. Yep. Alright. I guess we'll exile the sorcery here, which is more relevant than getting rid of a land. So potential mistake here by playing out the Relic into an Ancient Grudge. It's actually funny, so our opponent did bring in Ancient Grudge to kill our Amulet. We took out the Amulets, but Ancient Grudge still gets our Relic and Explosives. And if this is a turn 3 Blood Moon, we're gonna be in a bit of trouble, since we don't have the basic forest. Instead it's Tarmogoyf, which is a 3/4. Well, good thing we got rid of the sorcery, otherwise it would have been a 4/5. But Dismember's a nice pickup too, so we can just Dismember the Goyf using Gemstone Mine for black mana as well, so we don't have to take too much damage, or we can Engineer Explosives, but I kind of like keeping the Explosives for potential Blood Moon. I guess Ancient Grudge in the graveyard makes that tricky, so I suppose we could also just Explosives away the Tarmogoyf and keep Dismember for the future. That might be reasonable, since if our opponent plays Blood Moon, then Engineer Explosives is pretty useless anyway. Alright, I'm sold. So play Explosives on 2. Tap this for mana. Play Gruul Turf. Picking up Gemstone. And I think we're forced to do this now, otherwise we wouldn't have been able to sacrifice the Explosives. And then they just Ancient Grudge the Explosives and we won't be able to use it. So we were kind of forced to activate it now. Alright, so we got rid of the Goyf, and next turn we can potentially play Primeval Titan. So don't hate our spot. Just have to dodge a Blood Moon here. There's a Ronas as the Indomitable, that's okay. Dice to Dismember, and a Lightning Bolt on the Scout. Alright, so that means we won't be able to play Primeval Titan unless we pick up an untapped land. And that's not an untapped land. But I guess Bojuka Bog is still fine here, since that Prevents her opponent from having Delirium for a traverse or have a big Tarmogoyf to turn on Aronas. And then we'll say go. Can Dismember, paying 2 life since we can make black mana with the Gemstone if we want to. And there's a Bloodbraid Elf cascading into Lightning Bolt. Alright, that's fine. So don't have to Dismember Ronas quite yet, but we might be fine doing it anyways, since Ronas is going to be an issue if they have another creature in play and they have the Bloodbraid. So we might as well just get rid of the Ronas right now, while we have the mana. Untap. And play Primeval Titan. And I think we want to get at least a forest here, so we can have green mana through a Blood Moon. And then we could get a Sunhome, give Primeval Titan double strike next turn. Seems okay. Could also get more blue sources, so we can transmute Tolaria West, but I don't expect our opponent to be able to deal with Primeval Titan, and in that case, double strike is pretty appealing. And then we still get to play a land for the turn, so we'll play Growth Chamber, returning Bojuka Bog. Opponent with a Faithless Looting, discards Tarmogoyf, not good enough. Bloodbraid attacks, I think we'll take it. Don't want him to finish off Titan with a Lightning Bolt, and at 9 life I feel pretty safe. And a Goyf on defense, alright, that's okay. Since now we can play Bojuka Bog, shrinking the Goyf, and then attack with our Primeval Titan, getting Khalni Garden, and we can get Vesuva, which can target Bojuka Bog, which can empty our graveyard, so Tarmogoyf shrinks all the way. And then give Primeval Titan double strike, and hit them for 12. And I don't even think I want to explore since it grows Tarmogoyf, so I'll just say go. So Bojuka Bog did a number on our opponent here. And here's another Bloodbraid, which finds looting. So they can potentially grow the Tarmogoyf a little bit. And there's Firespout in the graveyard as well. So definitely a close game, but our opponent packs it in. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. Yeah, this looks like a keeper to me. Looking for a bounce land, mostly with the Ancient Stirrings, since we already have the Amulet. So let's Ancient Stirrings and find the Gruul Turf. So next turn we can go Amulet into Gruul Turf, make 2 mana, explore, make some more mana. Maybe play Azusa, start going off. Opponent with a turn 1 Llanowar Elves off of a Pendelhaven, so might be Elves. Time to start going off. Let's play Gruul Turf. Untap Gruul Turf, make 2 mana. And pick up Gruul Turf again. Cast Explorer. So we get to play Gruul Turf again. Ooh, and we found a second Amulet, that's exciting. So let's play Tolaria West. Untap it, play Amulet. And then next turn the Gruul Turf will make 4 mana. We can play Azusa, play Gruul Turf a bunch of times, and then Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan. There's Elvish Mystic, so our opponent is on Elves as expected. And a Heritage Druid, alright. So time to start making some mana. Play Simic Growth Chamber, untap it, make 2 mana, untap it, and then make 2 more mana, and then we could pick up the Growth Chamber itself, or we could make more mana with Tolaria West, pick up Tolaria West. I think I'm fine just picking up the Growth Chamber here. Then we get to play Azusa, play Simic Growth Chamber, make some more mana, pick up Tolaria West. So we would be able to transmute Tolaria West and cast Primeval Titan without having to Summoner's Pact for it. I guess that's a good opportunity to show that off. So we can transmute for a Pact, Could also go for Walking Ballista here, honestly, and just mow down the elves. So we have a lot of options. I don't hate getting Ballista. And then we can still play a third land for the turn. Untap Gruul Turf a bunch of times. Pick up Simic Growth Chamber again. And then cast a Ballista for 4. So we could have gotten Primeval Titan there, but I guess this was a good opportunity to show off the Tolaria West interaction. So we can start shooting down all the elves. And say go, and our opponent scoops it up. Alright, so that's a pretty fast win against the elf deck. Don't know if the opponent's going to have much in the way of interaction, but we do get to bring in some sweepers. Abrade and Dismember are probably fine as well, although we don't want to dilute our deck too much. So we might just want to stick with 2 sweepers. Pact of Negation doesn't seem necessary, and then I don't expect our opponent to have much in the way of artifacts or enchantments that can mess with us, although I might be forgetting something. And I think we just try this. Our main game plan is just to try and be faster than the opponent. So this hand could be very explosive, but we're currently missing a payoff card. So Summoner's Pact, Primeval Titan, and to a lesser extent Tolaria West could be good draws. Walking Ballista would be a good draw. So we do have some outs. Yeah, I think I'll keep Guildleaf Palace into Lenor Elves. And we picked up the forest, so we can play Sakura-Tribe Scout if we want to. I think that beats playing Amulet of Vigor on turn 1 against a deck with no removal. And then next turn we can potentially make a ton of mana. And Elvish Archdruid, so our opponent's also gonna make a ton of mana on their next turn. And find another scout. Alright, so just out of curiosity, how much mana would we have been able to make here? So we could play Amulet, play Gruul Turf, make 2 mana, return Gruul Turf, play Amulet of Vigor, number 2, still have 1 mana floating, and then put in the Gruul Turf with our Sakura-Tribe Scout, which would have made 4 more mana. So not quite enough to play Primeval Titan, but almost. So I guess we play Amulet, play Gruul Turf, untap Gruul Turf, make some mana, pick up Gruul Turf again, and then we get to play Amulet and Scout. And say go, and then we still have our Tribe Scout activation at the ready. Nettle Sentinel. So we will have to find one of our payoffs pretty soon here, since our opponent is putting up quite a board, and there's Uzuri, so yeah. Don't think we'll have many turns left. I guess we could always draw one of our sweepers. And a Shaman of the Pack is gonna drain us for 5. Alright, so let's put a land into play. Suppose we could put in Radiant Fountain just to gain 2 life. And then maybe copy it with Vesuva. And a Simic Growth Chamber. Alright, so this game we had all mana, no payoff. And I'm pretty sure we're dead next turn, but we'll find out. So we can play Simic Growth Chamber. Picking up Radiant Fountain. And then say go, sadly. So we can use Tribe Scout to put in Radiant Fountain, and then Vesuva copying Radiant Fountain, so we can gain 4 and block twice, and then potentially stay alive for another turn. We'll see. Opponent's making a ton of mana, so they can activate Uzuri. So now their creatures also have trample, so jumping is not going to do much, and that looks pretty lethal to me. So 12 plus 12 is 24, and we can gain 4, 6 essentially, so we're 1 short of surviving here. So yep, we're dead. Alright, so on to game 3. Do we change anything? So we could reconsider the Abrade and the Dismember essentially if we think we have to disrupt their lords in order to win, which might be a reasonable assessment. Or we could just hope to be faster than they are and kind of ignore their game plan. But I think if we can take out a lord like the Elvish Archdruid or Uzuri, then we buy ourselves enough time that it's probably worth it. And then we have to take out 2 cards. trimming to explorers is always a pretty safe option. Would like to be on the play. Seems okay. We've got Kozilek's Return to buy ourselves a lot of time and a lot of ramp effects. So just looking for a payoff card once again. And Guildleaf Palace into Lenor Elves. Alright. So we can Gemstone Mine into Explore. Into Gruul Turf, picking up our Gemstone Mine again. Another thing that I didn't consider during sideboarding is just taking out a land, since we are playing 28 lands, so cutting a land is always reasonable. For example, we could have cut a Bojuka Bog, which isn't very relevant, or a Cavern of Souls, one of those utility lands. And Damping Sphere, wow, I did not expect the Elf deck to be running Damping Sphere, since it also kind of goes against their own game plan. But that does shut off our bounce lands, making 2 mana. So I guess it's pretty effective. Do we want a Kozilek's Return before playing Azusa? I think we do. So we kind of let our opponent go off for a turn, play Kozilek's Return end of turn, untap, play Azusa, and start ramping into a Primeval Titan. Seems okay. So for now we'll play Gemstone Mine and pass a turn. So the Elf deck will also get slowed down by the Damping Sphere effect, but of course it's probably more effective against us than it is against the opponent. And Elvish Clankcaller, that's okay. So we're hoping they just play another creature that dies to the Kozilek's Return here, like this other Clankcaller, so that works out just fine. So those are gone. Get to untap, play Azusa, play Gruul Turf, picking up Gemstone Mine, play Bojuka Bog, exiling the opponent's graveyard, and play another Gemstone Mine, say go. It's actually tricky here, since if we cast a Summoner's Pact, Primeval Titan is gonna cost us 7 mana, but if we Summoner's Pact in the opponent's turn, then we have to pay 4 for the Pact on our upkeep. So we'll see here what we're gonna do exactly. If we draw land, then it's easy, then we can just Summoner's Pact plus cast Primeval Titan in the same turn. Or we can just cast a giant Walking Ballista, that's also reasonable. Alright, we drew a land, but it's a Simic Growth Chamber. I guess that still works, we can still Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan here. So cast Summoner's Pact, get Primeval Titan, cast Primeval Titan, get 2 lands, and now we have to see what we want to get. I don't think the Elf deck is going to be able to deal with Primeval Titan, so I'm just going to get Khalni Garden and a Radiant Fountain. Seems okay. And then we can pay for the Pact using Khalni Garden and one of the gemstones, and then just play a Walking Ballista next turn, and that should do it. There's Azuri, that's fine. So we'll have to pay 4. Play Growth Chamber, pick up Gemstone, play Gemstone, and play Ballista for 3. And that should wrap things up. And yep, that's gonna do it. So managed to beat the Black-Green Elves. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And how about this one? Looks like a keep to me. We will need some more green mana here, but I'm sure we'll manage. So turn 2 we can make mana with the Garrison, play Azusa. If the Boros Garrison was any other bounce land, it would have been a lot better here. And turn 1 Faithless Looting off a Wooded Foothills. So it could be a Hollow One deck. And we see another Looting and a Cinderglade go to the graveyard. And we picked up Simic Growth Chamber, so that's exciting. So we'll play Growth Chamber, untap it, make 2 mana. Return Growth Chamber to our hand. Play Azusa. And we get to play 2 more lands. So I think we'll just play the Garrison, since we want to keep the Growth Chamber in hand for next turn, so we can make 6 mana, including green mana, for the Summoner's Pact. So we'll pick up the Gemstone, play the Gemstone, and say go. And then next turn we can make a whole bunch of mana with the Simic Growth Chamber and cast Primeval Titan, which we can potentially even give haste. But instead they bolt Azusa. Luckily we have another one. And the second Amulet is exciting. Just play the Amulets, play Growth Chamber as our first land. We get to untap it twice, making 4 mana. And then we'll return Growth Chamber itself. And then we get to play Azusa. Play Growth Chamber a bunch more times, making more and more mana. Returning Growth Chamber, and play it one last time. Making more mana. And returning it. And now we get to Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan. Cast Primeval Titan. And get 2 lands. And we can give the Titan haste right away here. So we can get a Slayers Stronghold. And we'll get a Simic Growth Chamber as well. And then we'll make some white mana here with the Gemstone Cavern, I think. Untap Slayers Stronghold. Give Titan haste. Untap, untap. Make some mana, untap. And return Garrison to hand. And we could pact again for another Titan here if we want to. Since we have the mana for it. Get some more lands, and we want to make sure to be able to activate the Stronghold here another time. So we can get Gruul Turf and Selesnya Sanctuary, for example. Untap, make some mana. Untap, make some mana. Untap, make some mana. Untap, make some mana. And then give our Titan haste. Suppose we could have also gotten the double strike land here, but we can still do that after attackers. And then bounce some lands. Go to combat, attack. Those trigger. So we can get Sunhome and Gruul Turf. Make a bunch of mana. Bounce the Gruul Turf. And with the other trigger, want to make some white mana. So we can get Vesuva to copy the Simic Growth Chamber, for example. And then I'm just going to keep it simple and get a forest. So that's going to copy the Sanctuary. Untap a bunch of lands. And then give our Titan double strike. And that should be lethal here. Alright, so that's a turn 3 kill. Pretty impressive. Sweet, so on to sideboarding against a Lightning Bolt Faithless Looting deck. Not exactly sure what to expect. Cinder Glade is not a land you typically see in Hollow 1 decks. I'm gonna assume that Relic of Progenitus is gonna be useful. And then we could expect to face Blood Moon. So I might bring in Seal of Primordium as a hedge. And we might actually want to take out Amulet, since a red-green deck is gonna be pretty likely to have Ancient Grudge. And then Pact of Negation is probably not too useful. Maybe bring in an Obstinate Baloth for some more life gain. I think we'll try this for now. Alright, so this hand's not particularly exciting, but we do have some tools. We've got some Graveyard interaction for Blood Moon, a bit of ramp, and some selection with Ancient Stirrings. It's just missing the payoff card. Alright, we'll play Ancient Stirrings and find Gruul Turf, Tolaria West. So we'll get the Tolaria West here so we can eventually get a Primeval Titan with it. Stomping Ground into Commune with the Gods. Alright, so they're pretty serious about their graveyard interactions. And there we see Vengevine, Blood Moon, so all the cards we were afraid of. Flamewake Phoenix, so this Bojuka Bog is gonna do a number on our opponent. So we can Cavern of Souls into Explore, into Bojuka Bog, seems fine. We'll name Giant. Could have also taken out the Cavern of Souls or one of the other lands to make room for maybe a second Obstinate Baloth, but now we have a better idea what the opponent is up to. Alright, Bojuka Bog you, say go. And now the Simic Growth Chamber helps us make blue mana for Tolaria West. And there's Blood Moon. Luckily we have the seal. Blood Moon being in play is actually useful since now we don't have to return a land with the Growth Chamber. And we can just play Azusa and unload all these bounce lands and then blow up the Blood Moon and be left with a ton of mana. So for now we'll say go. And then next turn we can Seal Primordium plus transmute Tolaria West for a Pact. Hope they don't have a second Blood Moon, I guess. Bolt on Azusa, that's fine. Into another Commune. And their opponent put the Reckless Bushwhacker in their hand there. And we see more Vengevines. That's on tap. So we'll start with Seal Primordium. Blow up Blood Moon. And then we can transmute Tolaria West for a Summoner's Pact. Could also get Walking Ballista potentially here, which is going to be pretty giant as well. Although that's weak to Ancient Grudge. So I think we just grab a Summoner's Pact anyway here. And then we can play Gruul Turf, which can pick up Bojuka Bog. And we'll say go. Could have also Summoner's Pacted for Azusa, so we can play Bojuka Bog this turn to clear the graveyard, but then we're left with nothing, so I would rather keep the Pact for a Titan. I guess we could have also picked up the Tolaria West, and then we have Gemstone Mine to make double blue for a Titan. So maybe there was a line in there that involved pacting for Azusa to clear the graveyard, and Blood Rage Brawler, discarding Flamewake Phoenix, and a Burning Tree Emissary. Oof, this is gonna hurt. So Burning Tree gets back Vengevine, and they still have the Bushwhacker in hand. So we might be taking close to lethal damage. Yep. Alright, so let's Pact for Titan. And Titan can get Khalni Garden and gain 2 life as well. So maybe we're not dead yet. So I think we just want to get the most defensive options possible. So we'll get Khalni Garden and Radiant Fountain, I think. And then we can clear the graveyard with Bojuka Bog, so the Phoenix doesn't come back. Alright, so we're at 7. We might be stable, but who knows. And there's another Blood Moon, which is gonna essentially be the game since we won't be able to pay for the Pact since we only got to 1 forest. That's unfortunate. And they're gonna attack, but it doesn't matter at this point. I guess a Lightning Bolt also kills us here. But we're gonna die to our own Pact. Alright. So let's go to sideboarding. We already brought in all the answers to Blood Moon, I think. Probably want the extra Obstinate Baloth instead of Cavern of Souls. Could consider Kozilek's Return and or Firespout to stop those quick starts with Burning Tree Emissary and Bushwhacker. Maybe Azusa is a little vulnerable to Lightning Bolt, and we instead want more defensive measures. I could see this. Although Firespout's not great since Burning Tree plus Bushwhacker has haste, so maybe we'll go just to Kozilek's Return and keep in 3 Azusas. Maybe we want Hornet Queen as well. Could also see that, but triple green's gonna be rough through a Blood Moon. So I think we'll just try this for now. We didn't see any Ancient Grudges in that game, but I expect our opponent to have them. And how about this one? So this is kind of relying on Ancient Stirrings maybe finding a Relic of Progenitus to interact with the opponent. Otherwise, Engineered Explosives is probably not gonna cut it. I think I go to 6 here. Alright, this hand is gonna need some lands, but we've got a lot of those in the deck. So we'll bottom the Stirrings, and then we'll Stirrings turn 1, and look for some lands. Alright, so we found Growth Chambers and Vesuva. Probably just want the Growth Chamber here. Say go. So we're gonna be pretty cold to Blood Moon, as we see looting, discarding Vengevine and Flamewake Phoenix. Just gonna Growth Chamber, picking up Gemstone. Can they get back Vengevine? They sure can. Memnite into Bushwhacker, get back Vengevine. Yeah, that's a good one. So we're under quite a bit of pressure. So we'll have to be even faster than the opponent here, which is going to be difficult, as we're going to take 9 damage on turn 2. So we can play Azusa, play an extra land that doesn't do much for us. So I think we probably start by exploring. Find another Pact. So we can play 2 lands, explore again, or play Ballista on 1, which might buy us a little bit of time by chumping Vengevine and killing the Bushwhacker. And a second explorer only does something if we draw into a land. I think I like Ballista on 1 more. Say go. And there's a Commune. And our opponent didn't put anything into their hand there, but they can get back a Flamewake Phoenix from the graveyard thanks to Vengevine. So if we chump Vengevine, shoot down Bushwhacker, we will still be taking 3 damage. And pick up Sakura-Tribe Scout, which is not gonna cut it, so let's explore, I guess. Find Slayers Stronghold. So we can either play Azusa or Tribe Scout. What are we even hoping to draw next turn? Not even sure. I guess we'll play the Tribe Scout so we don't waste any counters on the Gemstone Mine. I guess maybe playing Azusa was correct, since we can just block the Memnite, take 6 down to 2. And then if we draw Bounced Land, we might be able to generate some mana. But we would have been forced to chum block the Vengevine now anyway, so I guess we're happier that we played the Scout. So we'll take 5 down to 3, that to a Bolt, and Primeval Titan's not gonna save us here. Alright, got pretty close. Can play Azusa and play Gruul Turf. Pick up a land, and that's gonna do it. I guess I forgot about Obstinate Baloth in our deck, so we could have pacted for Obstinate Baloth and played it. Go to 7, and then we wouldn't have been dead this turn. I guess we have to pay for the Pact, and then we're dead the turn after to the finishes. But maybe pacting for Baloth would have given us 1 more turn there. Alright, anyways, this is gonna do it for today's gameplay. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel, and you can do so yourself as well over at patreon.com/legendvd, where you get cool rewards for supporting the channel, as well as getting us closer to our goals, where with every goal reached, we will release an additional weekly series. So if you want to see more content, Patreon is the place to go.